Welcome to Live at Lunch. I'm Devin Sellers, and we are live at the George Washington Carver Museum in downtown Dothan for our Black History Month special. And it's an event that served as a catalyst to changing race relations in our country. Nearly 60 years ago, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery City bus to a white man. News 4's Ashton Wright talked with two Dothan residents who remember that event and others in the fight for change.
When you think of the civil rights movement, you likely picture Rosa Parks or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Rosalind James thinks of her father.
He was really capturing history.
Edward Jenkins was a photographer for the movement.
Right here you see a picture that my father took of Dr. King while he was speaking. And believe it or not, moments after this picture was taken, tear gas was thrown in the church.
James was in middle school at the height of the civil rights movement, and although her father wouldn't allow her or her siblings to participate, she understood the importance of what was happening around them. She recalls one memory in which two white men tried to blow up her father. While they were unsuccessful in their plot, there wasn't a happy ending.
The men had planted a bomb for my father, and when my dad checked the trash cans and everything on the beach, it did not explode. When they went back to check the trash can, the bomb that they had set for my dad exploded.
But despite the violence, Rosalind says her parents and the people she met through the movement didn't teach her to hate anyone.
In spite of how the violence might have gone that day, they got right back up and they just continued to march and to speak out.
The events unfolding in Alabama in the 1960s were a turning point, not only for the state, but the nation as a whole. Freedom Riders arrived in the state on May 14, 1961. The first bus was firebombed in Anniston, the riders barely escaping as hundreds of white men attacked them with pipes and bats. The second bus was attacked when it reached Birmingham. The riders were held in the city for 5 days before President John F. Kennedy ordered they be given a police escort to Dothan. The riders stayed just long enough to determine that there were no issues and continued on their journey. On March 7, 1965, several hundred people led by Pike County native John Lewis tried to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma on their way to Montgomery. They were met by sheriff's deputies and state troopers who used brutal force to end the march. The day became known as Bloody Sunday. The march picked back up on March 21st, this time led by Dr. King. By the time they reached the state capitol, there were more than 20,000 people. The marches led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In the Wiregrass, things were slow to change. Rayfield Vester started working with the Houston County Extension Service in 1966.
When I came into this particular building, there was this little small room that was, the blacks used to have to use as a bathroom.
Vester began working with the National Peanut Festival in the early 70s and went on to become the first African-American president in 1997.
There were two separate festivals, one black, one white.
While there were not two completely different fairs, each group had separate events.
There was just no talk and no dialogue in trying to make sure that the two groups were merged.
And that's something Vester wanted to change. Step 1, the Soapbox Derby.
I got someone to build a soap in the minority community, to build a soapbox derby, to put it in there. Win or lose.
It was a small victory that opened the door to more minorities participating in festival events, but there's still work to be done today.
Our young people, they didn't grow up during the civil rights movement. They don't exactly understand that people died and marched and sacrificed their time for them to have a right to vote and for them to have a good education.
Well, James says it is important to continue teaching today's generation about the civil rights movement, not by focusing on the negative, but the positive outcomes of the movement. And in the 70s, 4 men from Dothan joined forces to create the Biracial Study Club. It was an effort to bring together different people in the community to work towards a common goal. And Mr. Aslam Rana joined the group in 1979, and he joins me now to talk about some of their accomplishments. Thank you for being here.
Well, you're welcome. There are so many things that you can talk about. And the biggest thing is we are now easily can talk to each other. Previously it used to be that, like in one time, one gentleman came here from North and he joined our JC's club. And then he came back next time, he said, I'm going back to New York.
Yeah?
For him, it was too tight of an atmosphere.
Okay.
But now you don't hear that thing.
So what was the goal of the group when you guys formed?
Well, the goal of the group is provide equal opportunities, respect each other. We're all human beings, so we should work with each other regardless of what color, race, and religion you are. And I'm an example of that.
Sure.
Yes.
And tell me how you came to live in Dothan.
Well, let's say for a job.
Okay.
In 1973, oil embargo cut my jobs. In Jacksonville, I was there. So I had to look for a job, so I came here, work with an architect here.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about some of the early issues you guys tackled. What issues do you think still needs work?
I think the human heart has to change. The laws cannot do anything. If I'm not good at my heart, I will never give respect to anybody I should. So we have to continuously work on this. It has not stopped, it has improved a lot more, but it has to still be working and getting closer. Like, for instance, we are having interfaith group here in Dothan. Before that group met each other, it was very difficult for a Muslim to ask a Christian a question, or a Christian to ask Muslim a question. Sometimes these are questions we may get annoyed.
Sure.
But once we start to meeting each other, then you find your comfort zone. Then you ask or advise somebody without any hindrance. So I think we have crossed that part. We are now in the comfort zone. Now we have to work together so that each one gets equal respect everywhere.
For sure, and changing our hearts. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mr. Rana.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And from elementary school to college, teachers are entrusted with an important task, passing the stories of civil rights pioneers on to younger generations. News 4's Matthew McClellan shows us how teachers are answering tough questions and bringing up new talking points with students.
Slavery, Jim Crow, and segregation are not easy for a lot of people to talk about. But inside Patterson Hall at Troy University, all topics are on the table.
The whole idea of integration.
Joe McCall is a professor and senior speaker in the history department. He says learning often means getting uncomfortable.
Looking back at our own history, and sometimes looking back at things that are unpleasant to look at, things that are disturbing, is real important because we all have shadows in our past. And the wise person understands those shadows instead of trying to hide from them.
And one of my colleagues pulled these from the archives a few years ago.
Catherine Tucker teaches civil rights at Troy. She uses online video and audio recordings to bring out strong emotional reactions from her students. For many, it's their first real exposure to the brutality of the past.
Watching their facial expressions, the shock, the horror, when they see it, see that violence, hear the people screaming. You can see it on their facial expressions that they're processing, what really happened and what this really tells them about that society.
Sadness and even anger are common responses, but professors like Quentin Cockrell say empathy is key to understanding prejudice.
How would you have behaved if you were in that situation and you had been told all your life that this is the way that you should behave?
As teachers and students exchange difficult questions in classrooms, the end goal is reconciliation.
It's finding the part of us that's connected to each other as opposed to the part of us that's different. That's what I'm after.
With students at every level studying Black history this month, one thing is clear.
It's an ongoing process. We don't make a distinction and just talk about, Black history. We incorporate it into the American story.
That story is far from over. Matthew McClellan, WTVY News 4.
Black History Month became a nationally recognized holiday in 1976. Still to come today on our special Black History Month edition of Live at Lunch, Sports Director Tony Cornish Jr. will sit down with a former Carver High School coach. We'll be right back.
And once again, welcome back at Live at Lunch. We're here at the Carver Museum, and I am almost speechless to have such a great guy with me right here. Coach Wade Morrison, former head coach, of course, at the old Carver High School and at Dothan High, coach basketball there. Coach, thanks for joining us for this special edition of Live at Lunch, and give us a little reflection of back of the old years back at Carver High School, which, of course, not standing anymore, but I'm sure you still have fond memories.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of fond memories. Some of the best years of my life was at Carver. And I still meet those people today. You know, I don't meet their father, but I meet their children and their grandchildren.
Sure. And
the children even know me. The grandchildren even know me. So that's always make you feel good when somebody you never taught in your life that seem to have fond memories of what the father told about you. So.
Talk a little bit about the atmosphere, the time, the sense of pride that existed at Carver back in the early years.
Well, all I know is what happened at Carver. And we thought we had to find a school down here in South. And of course we did. We had the best basketball team and developed a good football team. We had good personality. We had good staff. Mm-hmm. Everybody seemed to work together. Student body worked together. We had national recognition for our our honor students. If you know Reverend Edward Thomas, one of our he was a student back those days, and of course he was on the national scenes as far as the speaking oratorical. Right. And of course we had a lot more I can name, but just one I know people around here are familiar with. So I mean, we had whatever we had except money. So we made do with that.
Sure. Now this was the segregated South, of course, all black Carver High. Then desegregation hits 1969. Mm-hmm. We're going to Dothan High School now. Talk about that transition.
Well, 1969, I was out there working, usually because we had we were only getting paid about 9 months out of a year, and of course we had to live 12 months.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was out there working when I was told that I had reported to Dothan High School, Willis Bryant, the late Willis Bryant, and myself, and to meet the superintendent and the principal. And that's how it all got started. They told what our responsibilities were and what we had to do, and I was tickled to death for being going there. But only one thing about it, I had a state championship team I thought waiting on me at Carver.
Sure.
And I had to lose those boys because they didn't come to Dothan High School.
Okay.
But some of them, the one or two that did come, we went to state finals that year.
Fond memories. Coach, we appreciate you joining us, so we got to go, but we thank you for all you've done, for all of us here at Dothan.
Thank you.
And throughout the Circle City.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
That'll wrap things up. Still to come today on our special Black History Month edition of Live at Lunch. We're taking us on a tour of this great facility right here in downtown Dothan, the Carver Museum. Don't go away.
Welcome back. We are live at the George Washington Carver Museum in downtown Dothan, and every wall here is covered with black pioneers. And News 4's Bridget Spencer takes us on a tour.
It was a dream come true for George Washington Carver Museum founder Dr. Francina Williams. She says opening the museum, named after the botanist and inventor, was a collaborative effort that paid off.
We had Powell, Bruton, and others that just joined in and raised the funds.
And inside the museum in downtown Dothan lies many interpretations of black pioneers.
We showcase photos of people and information about them and try to show them in a really cool, artsy way so you can really connect more.
The founder's son, Kenneth Strickland, says he has a passion for ancient black history, and he was happy to share it with the Wiregrass.
And I traveled all over the Caribbean, and I brought back what I was allowed to bring back.
Strickland says he will never forget the moment his friend made a comment about his ancestry. After that, he couldn't get his mind off of ancient black history.
He said, I have Moorish blood in me. I'm from southern Italy. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about, and I was either too stupid or too egotistical to let him know it and ask a question. So I remained ignorant. And one Sunday, a program called The Long Ships, that's Longship, came on, and it starred Richard Widmark and Sidney Poitier. And Sidney Poitier played a Moorish prince, and that's when it hit me, what Tony was trying to tell me. The Moors were black.
And with it being Black History Month, hungry minds are flocking to the museum. And one of the highlights of class trips is the wall of Black scientists and explorers. Freeman says each year she picks an inventor or a scientist to focus on.
This year it's Garrett Morgan, who invented the gas mask. He's known for the traffic light, but he also invented a lot of really great things that help us stay safe.
Black History Month is not just for African Americans to enjoy, but it's for Americans to remember, reflect, and move forward.
If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
When you talk about history now of humans, you're talking Black.
Bridget Spencer, WTVY News 4.
Well, most of the paintings done here at the Carver Museum were done by a local mural artist, Wes Hardin. And so to come on live at lunch, we're talking to a longtime educator in the Wiregrass about his contributions to the community. We'll be right back. Well, for the past 39 years, February has been set aside for students to learn the most important event in Black history. But one Wiregrass native says 28 days isn't nearly enough time to educate our youth about a legacy of invention, culture, and civic pride. News 4's Amanda Dansby introduces us to a man who has dedicated his life to making sure these lessons are taught.
I love children. That's all I've ever.
Franklin Jones has spent more than 40 years as an educator.
I was a teacher first. I taught everything. Assistant principal at Northview, and then principal of the alternative school here in the city of Dothan for about 21 years.
Jones has seen many changes as the decades have rolled by, beginning with his own education at Carver High, the Black high school in Dothan.
I was in one of those schools where every textbook we received was already 5 years old. The textbooks at Carver High were sent from Dothan High when the children there had finished using them. Many years there were no books.
Jones made the most of his time at Carver, earning a basketball scholarship to Miles College in Birmingham. From there, he moved to South Florida, where he continued his education and began to pass down what he had learned.
Attended the University of Miami because a teacher could go to school down there for like $15 a semester if you were working in the system. And every 15 hours you earn, you would get an increase in pay. So I stayed in school.
Since the mid-70s, Jones has worked in Dothan, advancing to his current position on the Dothan City School Board. And while Jones has seen plenty of changes, he often wonders how much progress has actually been made, especially when it comes to teaching Black history.
I wish we did teach it. You know, you can't take a month and teach what took place over 500-600 years. There is no American history, no, without Black history.
Jones says it's crucial to teach that history, giving students perspective about the past.
And all children need to be taught. This generation of Black don't know anything about Black history. They did not experience the civil rights era of this nation. They know Dr. Martin Luther King, and that's about it.
The struggles of Dr. King and civil rights leaders have brought an end to segregation and created a more equal environment in the classroom. But Jones says there's still a lot more work and learning left to do.
We've grown in this country. We got a long way to go. And as a people, we have to teach our own history. We have to live our history. You know.
Jones and his family say education is something to celebrate. In 2014, one of Jones's family members earned their PhD, and just this year, the first member of the Jones family began school in the Ivy League at Yale University.